Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Akashic Bec YouTube channel. I am Akashic Bec, and I am so excited to have another installment, episode 4 of Medicine, Mystics, and Messengers. And we have some divine masculine on the pod today. um, this is a fella I have been following for, gosh, I don't even know how long I've been following you for, but I remember when you're kind of just getting started, and now, things have really expanded for you, and I'm so glad to see that. He is a psychic medium and a tarot aficionado, and I am so excited to welcome him on the podcast. Please welcome Rob from Intuitive Intention. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Beck. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here and I'm excited to contribute. And a big thank you to you too for how long we've been kind of just supporting each other through our journey itself. And it can't be much more than 4 or 5 years because it was really pandemic that I got on TikTok. So,
Right. I think a lot of people did that, me
yep.
included. That's awesome. And Rob, let's just dive in. Like, I want people to know about you and what you do. Please tell us, like, I know I gave you a little bit of an intro there, but, give us in detail what you
Yeah.
do and what got you into it.
Well, first and foremost, I'm probably kind of feeling a little driven to talk a little bit about my journey, just because a big part of what I do on TikTok is helping others to realize that we can all do this. We can
Yes.
all connect with our higher selves, connect with our spirit guides, connect with energy around us. So, as we were getting started, I was mentioning the fact that in my day job, I'm an architect. It's been a great passion of mine since I was probably in middle school, definitely in high. Um, I knew I wanted to be an architect. I had it around me. I had two friends whose fathers were architects, and I was just driven to art and all those elements. And so ultimately, kind of got myself into architecture. Now, I bring that up because so much of what architecture is about is experience. It's about graphics, it's about design, it's about visualizing. And I was mentioning to you back as we were getting started that some of the things that I look at now going back into my journey around architecture, being an architect, being somebody who has to present in front of a lot of people, um, graphically take things from here and put them into reality. Though we might say what we do here is kind of the reverse of that. I know that all of this has kind of brought me to where I am now in trying to be able to visualize or communicate what I see visually and put out. And where I got into TikTok was I've just always been connected to wanting to do something around mediumship. In particular, mediumship was the thing that just excited me. Seeing people like John Edward on TV or seeing movies that were about those things metaphysical just lit me up. But it wasn't until about 2014 or so that I met somebody virtually in a pre-TikTok type app that kind of said, Rob, you've got something. You should do something with this. And she kind of brought me into understanding how to read oracle cards, which was my first kind of introduction into everything. You mentioned tarot, and tarot is something I stayed away from until about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll tell you more about that later when we talk about cards. Um, but mediumship was what I always wanted to do. And it's just more recently since the pandemic and getting onto TikTok that I met the right people that got me in the development circles that I could really advance and grow that. And it's since then that I've then, when I go live on TikTok and workshops that I teach are all about teaching others how to do what we do. And that we can understand our own language with spirit. And if we get comfortable with that, we can share it with others. We can understand what spirit's sharing with us.
Absolutely. And that is so fascinating. I love that, it's like the very things that we stayed away from. I've heard that so many times where we've like resisted. We're like, "No, get back. That's evil. That's wrong," or whatever. It's whether it's our
Yeah,
conditioning, our raising, our religious beliefs and whatnot. Um and then it ends up falling into our lap, and it's like, but actually, this is part of your purpose. This is what you were
for
meant to
sure.
do. Like,
Yeah.
stop fighting it. You're just silly, you know? It's so real. It's
100%.
so real. Oh my gosh. Hilarious. Okay, so tell me, kind of playing off of what we're talking about right now, tell me about like when you were a child, or a teenager, young adult, like what were you experiencing any kind of like spiritual type experiences? Like had you had paranormal experiences, because you say, that you're a psychic medium. So I assume that you maybe had some experiences in your past that kind of like interested
Ready for
you
this?
in the Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
No, I
No?
did not. I did not. There are
Wow,
definitely
that's
things I
cool.
can look back at in my life, and that's why I so truly believe and know that anybody can do this because I didn't have those visions. I wasn't seeing people. Now I had lots of different experiences now looking back that I can go, oh my God, that was spirit. Uh,
Yeah.
when I was very, very young, something I don't remember, well, I remember something, I'll tell you that. I had a very, very high fever and
Mhm.
I ended up having to go into the hospital. I was stiff as a board and all
Ooh,
sorts of stuff. Had to get a spinal tap, which is what
dang.
they did back then for high temperatures and stuff like that. This is back in early 70s.
Mhm.
Um, because I was probably about 2 or 3 years old, is what I remember the stories of being told. But
Mhm.
I remember vividly being in a crib in the hospital and people coming
Wow.
to visit me, like my family,
Mhm.
my physical family coming to
Right.
visit me. But it's those types of moments when you think about, well, what got me through that and was spirit there? And there was a moment when I was mowing the lawn. We had a big yard in Ohio where I grew up. I'm no longer in Ohio, but it was a power ride mower. And since I was 10, 12 years old, it was like, well, that's your job is mowing the lawn. And it had been wet that morning, kind of dewy, and my foot slipped off the brake. And I was pulling it back into the garage and it boom hit the wall and started climbing the wall and
Ooh.
started to fall back. And
Whoa.
my dad was there just in the moment to stop it, turn it off, and get me off of it before it fell down to the ground. So it's
Oh,
moments like
man.
that where you're like, stuff like that just, could have gone a different direction.
So
Um,
different.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's the last one I'll share with you, which was definitely the most spiritually driven. Was
Mhm.
part of what I share in my workshop that I do is that our life's experiences are our language with spirit. So
Right.
if spirit's going to talk to us, they're going to use what we know.
Mhm.
One of those things that I knew, and I get teary eyed when I tell this story, so hopefully I won't this time. But I had a really tough youth growing up.
Mhm.
Was
Mhm.
bullied a lot. Stayed to myself, and it's even in that that I start to go, there was the building of me internalizing and talking to myself slash
Mhm.
spirit. Um, and I remember getting out of my body at one point where I made a decision in my life of staying
Okay.
and and seeking help and going to mom and saying, Mom, I need to talk to somebody. And
Yeah.
I was probably 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range, just getting into
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment too that out of body experience was like, whoa, like there's something else. Like that moment where we can see our body, that's not normal. And so
Mhm.
for
Right.
me, it was like another realization. Now, those are the things that were like, oh wow, and maybe near death type experiences, but
Mhm.
it was my fascination with sci-fi, anything psychic, movie, Star Wars, Star Trek was like my thing. Like that was just,
I love Star Trek.
and a lot of us do, if I say
Yeah.
us. Um, but it was things like that that got my mind outside of what is physically known and the experiences about what's acceptable and
Mhm.
thinking beyond our world was what really excited me. And so it was there and in that that kind of led me and continued my moving through something more than our physical world, and looking beyond.
Amazing. And it may not be something that just like really stands out. Like there are just subtle messages that come to us a lot of times that, like you said, when we look back on it later, we're like, Oh, you know,
right?
like
Yeah,
I was being
we
tipped
all
off
have those.
then, but
It's yeah.
nobody like I didn't know that I needed to know, you know?
Yes, we all have those little things, and if we can look back on them and think about them, the last one I'll tell you, which was probably I think for me was my mom's mom, who I really didn't get to know because she passed away when I was really young.
Mhm.
Um, she played the organ, the electric organ, and
Cool.
when my grandfather moved out of his place and into something that was more of an independent assisted living place, we got that organ, and um, something about, and I had taken organ lessons when I was really young because I don't know why, mom made me, but something about that organ um, connected with me, and it would always have problems. It would always keys wouldn't work, or there'd be static when you press a certain note. It would play the
Mhm.
note, but there'd be like in the background. So
Yeah.
I got to the point where I took the back off of it and started to look inside of it. Now, this is
Mhm.
1970s and into the early 80s. This
Mhm.
is an old electric organ. So we're talking tubes, like the old light to electrical tubes that are
Right,
inside there.
right, right.
And so I looked in there, I'm like, oh my God, all this dust, all these old tubes. So I cleaned it. I took care of it and put it back together, and it was working great. About 6 months later, it would start doing that again. So I kept this thing going back, and it was really a weird thing, but it was almost like somebody, and mind you, I'm going through really tough times at this point. I
Yeah,
needed something to get me out of my head. This
right.
organ was it, and it belonged to my grandmother that I didn't really know. And so there was
Mhm.
this kind of this unknown maybe relationship or something that was happening there of get me out of my head and work on something. There was
Right.
also something. Now looking back, it was at the time I was just doing something that this is neat. I want to do this. But
Mhm.
now looking back, I'm like, God, they could have been my grandmother really kind of getting me out of my head.
Props to grandma. You
Right?
know,
Right?
we never we yeah, we don't know what we need until it presents itself, right? And, and
Yeah.
like you said, that age range, that's a tough age, man. And you know
Yeah.
what it makes me think of? I know this is probably really silly, but, in the light of talking about Star Trek, I was a huge fan of X-Men when I was growing up, like the comic books, the shows, and the
Sure.
movies. I love all that stuff, and it's usually around the age of 13 that they start to develop their gifts, right? Like something
Oh, is that right?
happens.
Okay.
Mhm, and
Yeah,
and
you're
that's
right.
what
I
that
remember
makes
that
me
now in the
think
movies.
of.
Yes.
That's what makes me think of it, and it's like, you've got, like, this surge of hormones and, like, you're not really a kid anymore, but you're not a grown, and it's just, like, a weird, like, time and a place to be in. So I totally feel you on that. I think it can be hard for a lot of us. Um and then talking about, your grandma and the organ and everything, what I was hearing as you were telling me this story is that, maybe this was something you did in a previous lifetime. A lot of times the
Oh,
gifts that we don't even know that we have or that we're just naturally good at,
that's a great
they
point.
they can actually come from previous
Yeah.
incarnations.
Oh, I loved tinkering with stuff like that. Once things got into the digital computer age,
Yeah.
not so much, but getting into electronics and stuff like that, I enjoyed that a lot. And
Yeah.
anything small like that. I did models, the plastic models that you could paint and, put together and
Right.
everything. I was
Right.
into all those types of little, intricate little things that,
Yeah,
yeah,
intricate.
absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
I hadn't thought of that.
there you go. Maybe this is something to investigate later on, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. So let's talk a little bit. Let's kind of shift the conversation slightly and talk about tarot. So I know, you do on TikTok, you do lives, you pull cards for people. And then you also teach workshops about, how to learn the tarot and utilize the cards. And I think you've even created decks yourself. Is that correct?
Yep, I have over 3 decks that I've created. I don't sell them on TikTok anymore. They're
Hmm.
only on Etsy and my website. But so if I jump back to where you're going about tarot, that was the
Hmm.
first thing I said. That with this tarot has this language already.
Right.
You have the Queen of Wands means something.
Hmm.
That I wasn't that type of person to go read and study what does the Queen of Wands mean. Okay, next King of Wands, next, move.
Right.
And so I stayed away from it because it just seemed like to me, well, that's not my place. Like I'm not that psychic. I'm not the one that's going to read tarot. Um, I was Oracle, and I liked Oracle because it was graphical. Like there was
Okay.
a picture that you looked at, and there was always, yes, there's a word or maybe sometimes words. And I didn't like the ones that would have a paragraph on them. I always like just a
Right.
word or two words
Right.
because it was simple enough and I was able to connect with that language in some way to go, oh, that's what that
Mm,
means to me. And it was definitely 7, 8, 9 years later that I was like, I've got something here and the ability to translate a card when I'm sitting with somebody and it means something to them, which was
right.
magical, of course. But it was also, how do you tell somebody who's, yeah, you can read for me, and then confidently give them a message that's coming from a card and it's supposed to align with them. Like
Mhm.
that's where a lot of us, at least for me, I was like very nervous. Like I've got to tell somebody that I truly believe that this card means that they're having trouble with something, 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 or this is where they are in their life, or
Mhm.
keep your eye out for these types of things.
Mhm.
And I had friends that would constantly come back to me too, or offer me the opportunity to read for them,
Mhm.
that supported that. That ultimately I got more and more confident in it. And then about the 2020 timeframe when the pandemic hit, we're all sitting at home doing stuff, and I decided at that point, well, I'm going to start to record my doing readings for people on TikTok. Well, anybody wants a free reading, they'll come and get a free reading. But it was great practice for me. And I got more and more confident because the responses I was getting were affirmative and helpful and saying, yes, that makes sense. Thank you. Um, and so then there was a point I was live last night and I shared it with folks. It was only after a couple years of that, or at least a year, maybe a year and a half to 2 years, that I finally went on camera and put my face up on camera that Rob really is the one holding these cards up and telling you this.
Mhm.
And it was about that time that I started diving into mediumship as well. Um, I've had several mentors along the way. My first mentor that I mentioned that I had met through a pre-TikTok type app. It was very much the same thing, but not TikTok. Um, and she got on there and she would do readings for folks, but she also explained too. And
Mhm.
I learned a lot just from listening to her. But I was always the one kind of, in her words, in the background. Like every so often, I would pipe up and say something, and I'd get it right. Or but she said there was always something about you that drew me to want to talk to you. And at one point we had a few phone conversations. We were definitely emailing, but there was a point where I said to her, she knew I really wanted to get into mediumship, and she had had some health problems. And one of the last times I had shared emails with her, actually, I think we might have even been texting. She said she was back in the hospital,
Mm.
and trying to get her mind off of those health things. I think maybe I just, hey, when you get out of the hospital, I think it's time. Would you be willing to teach me mediumship? Well, I never heard back. She passed away.
Oh, I'm so
That
sorry.
said, yeah, it was well, I didn't truly know her, but
Mhm.
it was kind of like, oh gosh, here I was making all this progress and everything. But the
Right.
reality is that she moved into a state where she could help me more.
Mm.
A couple years later, which was on TikTok, as I was just getting on, like watching TikTok. Like I made an account and started watching other people. I met another person who again said very similar things, like, I'm really drawn to you, and there's somebody really strong around you. Well,
Mhm.
she defined this person to a T and said, she's in your spirit team now. She's
Oh, that's
guiding you.
awesome.
She's helping
Yes.
you. Which was magical for me. And I still feel her. I get chills now. Still feel her around me. Um, and she's definitely the one that's still poking and prodding me at times around that. But she led me through a journey. All my spirit team, I hear that. What about the rest of us? The spirit team leading me into the things I wanted to do, which was
Yeah.
read oracle cards and everything. And then in the pandemic, I decided, or I was poked, it's time to learn tarot. And so I thought about it for a little while. I'm like, how am I going to teach myself tarot? I really want to do this. Well, why don't I create my own cards because I had seen some people that are just drawing cards, just writing words on them and using them. I'm like, well, why don't I do that? But I'll do it graphically and design it. And so I created a tarot deck for myself, using AI, using my artwork, using all sorts of things. And I studied each card as I went. And after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, it was definitely 6, 7 months, I had a draft deck that I liked and I connected with. And I started using it. And I was connected with a group of people that it was by this time now I'm doing mediumship development, that I connected with this group of people. It's like, I want a deck. I want a copy of that. And it just expanded into something like, well, okay. And I fine tuned, and a lot of the cards, some cards turned out great at first. Others, 5, 6, 7 generations later, I finally liked the card. But then I put them out and I started selling them. And I'm like, wow, people are using them. And here's the thing that Beck, that is just, now I appreciate it at a higher level. But when you see somebody using something you created to connect with spirit and get a message that works for them and their sitter,
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like, how is that possible? How is that
Right.
even possible? But it was
That's
then a
it's
couple
probably,
years
like,
later,
really fulfilling.
fulfilling, but that you're like, oh, there's got to be something up there, because how is that possible? But it was then a year or two later that I decided to do my own oracle deck, and about halfway through that, I just got pinged by spirit, like, put the tarot on it too. And so it's an oracle deck. It's got words on it, but it's got the tarot down below too. So it kind of connects both.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and a lot of people appreciate that who don't know tarot, because it starts to give them at least an inkling about what the cards mean in tarot
Yes.
with just a graphic they can read into.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. Then you mentioned my workshop. In fact, there's one coming up starting at the end of October that I teach folks to connect with their own language that they've built up over life. That's how spirit talks to us. We
Yeah.
see something that makes us think of somebody as we're walking down the street. That's your language. Spirit's like, oh, I'll make Beck think of grandma by showing this,
Mhm.
because that's what would bring grandma forward for you,
Mhm.
or make you think of a trip you had taken at one point. That's the spirit's pinging us with our life experiences to spark that, to bring that
Yeah.
forward. And when we get confident in that, then we're able to share that with others. Then we're able to, kind of go forward and hit the live button on TikTok, or and read a card, because I'm confident that the way I'm interpreting this, based on the way spirit's talking to me about my using my language, my life experience to interpret this card for you. Once you build that confidence, you're able to really translate those messages of everything that's happening around you to your sitter or yourself.
Absolutely. I love how you explained it, and also it's like, I think people kinda get in their heads about it and they overcomplicate things, and it's like, this isn't about, like, how Beck or how Rob reads or does their thing. It's about figuring out how you do that for yourself, and we're just
There you go.
helping you, we're kinda giving you a launch pad so that you can keep going with that and develop it all on your own and put your unique signature on it.
Well, and the mediumship journey for me was the next one, and really getting more confident. I will forever, every medium's a forever developing medium, but I'm only 4 or 5 years into it. And the it's a magnified level of that level of confidence,
Mhm.
because now you're hearing, you're seeing, you're smelling, all these different senses are being used by spirit to communicate with you. That's where your brain really gets into it, because okay, I shared this last night while I was live. I'm seeing a horse. Do I say horse, or are they showing me horse because my mom had a horse and I should talk about, maybe this is mom, or a horse because, well, they smell, they have a smell to them, there's a particular smell to them. And so that's the piece that in mediumship, it gets a little trickier, because now you have to really get comfortable with just give what I get. And over time, you start to build a familiarity with, well, when spirit shows you a horse, you either know they're showing you a horse because this person had a horse, or they're showing you a horse because of something in my life. Well, my mom had a horse. So you start to build those connections at another level of language. It's an exponential level of development for me. Anyway, this is my journey. Um, And here's the piece that some mediums will argue with me on this one, but I know it to be true for me, is when I'm reading cards, the sitter's loved ones are here around us. It is a form of mediumship for the sitter. Last night was a great example. I had somebody come through, and I don't do a lot of mediumship on live just because of that kind of, I'm still feeling like I need to develop this further, but I was definitely drawn to do it last night. I'm picking cards, and I always start with my sitter by first connecting with them. This is where I feel you are. Is this what, would this be? And there'll be a recognition of that. And then magically, the first card or two that comes out is like, boom, the mirror message of this and where we're finding them. But as I was getting into this card reading, I got a sense of somebody being in the cards, like the mess they're helping to bring this message forward and connect me with them. And I forget what card it was, and I forget all the meanings behind it. And of course, I won't get into great depth, but the level of information and what I was feeling from this spirit guide is I was able to share. I'm getting this person's energy, and they're like, yeah, that, and this is particularly happening right now because of where you are and where this person's journey was. And we started to dive in a little bit further. And sure enough, I kind of put the cards down and we just did mediumship for about 10 minutes or so. And then back to the cards again. But as we melded all that together, for me, the cards and mediumship go together. Now, a lot of psychic mediums will say, no, absolutely not. There's a psychic side and there's a mediumship side. But again, each of our journeys is different. Each of us read differently. Each of us connect with spirit differently. And spirit knows that I use the cards to get that started and connect that way. And I'll oftentimes do readings where I'm like, well, your loved ones are here. I'm not doing mediumship right now, but I'm getting a male energy. And this is what I'm feeling about this. So a person that would have experienced this, or this is the message that's coming through. And I keep going with the card reading because I just want to stay at that level. But last night there was a strong person that wanted to come through and connect with the sitter and started with the cards. And then we shifted into mediumship, nailed it, was the person, and then went back into the cards and the message that this person was trying to bring through, which was for this person the right message at the right time, what they needed to hear, and somebody they hadn't connected with since they passed. And it was somebody who's working on their own spiritual journey, but they needed to hear this at that moment and that time. And that's for me, I think, a big part of what we do in reading cards and mediumship is if we can keep ourselves in the moment of even our lives, follow our joy. This is the message I share all the time. Follow your joy. This is what we're supposed to be doing, but we get in our head and we think about the past. We think and worry about the future. But when we're reading cards, it's in that moment right now. And spirit finds us in that moment right then, right now, and says, this is where this person is. I'm coming forward to give them this message because they need to hear this now. It's not about 6 weeks from now, though there may be some hintings of that, but it's about where we're finding you now. And that healing that can happen there is magical. Um,
Absolutely.
and I want to shift just for a second. Sorry, hopefully
Sure.
you're okay with that.
Yeah,
The
sure.
other piece I always get drawn to tell folks too is once you get comfortable with reading cards, that's great. But there's a level of respect you have to have for your sitter that you really, especially on TikTok, you don't know where they are.
Mhm.
And to come in with a joking kind of reading, or you really need to be kind of get that sense of where they are and deliver your message. Get what you're getting because that's what spirits wants you to share, but know that you don't know, and oftentimes you won't find out, or you won't find out until mid reading that this person's in a place that really needs a little bit more than absolutely more than a card reading. And the card readings are not meant to be a healing, um, something to heal us. They're meant to
Mhm.
help us with something we might need to know right now. But
Right.
there's so much more to be respectful about in connecting with anybody's psychic energy, mediumship, that we really need to take seriously and be concerned about. And it's not the reason, but it's certainly one of the reasons why I'm sensitive to not wanting to do too much reading on TikTok until I feel like I'm truly there. Like I
Mhm,
truly have an understanding of what's being shared with me, because you can do harm, not just good, but you can do harm
mhm,
depending on how you deliver message. And I think it's a sensitive piece that you have to develop. You just don't have it when, oh, I'll start reading. Well, I'll take it into, it happens over time that you start to, that you do have a psychic connection with somebody. You can feel their energy, see where they're at, but then that connection, how you deliver that message from mediumship, there's something that really does have to be learned. It's not something that you could be born with. You have to learn how to really deal with other people. And I think that's also going back at life's journey. I I work with people every day as an architect, talking about experience, talking to groups of 200 people in a room, um, doing one-on-one conversations with them about their experience in a space. Those types of experiences I've had over the last 40 years have been ones that have gotten me into a place that I'm much more sensitive and empathic about where we may
mhm.
be finding somebody.
Thank you so much for saying that because that is so real. Yes. Whenever, and there are so many components to being able to read for people, and like you said, you don't know where people are at a lot of times unless, you're just like a top-notch empath and you can pick up on stuff like lightning speed, but yes, that is so true, and I think people don't really realize that aspect of it, and that it's a very important layer to this work. There, I feel like there's layers, like it's an onion, It's like there's
Yeah.
different levels and different layers and different things that require a special set of skills. And I know that, you know, whenever people do readings, a lot of times you hear, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, right? And we're not responsible for how people take those readings, but it is our job to be mindful and respectful of, like you said, where people are at mentally and emotionally. And that's one reason why I have gotten, the certifications and the training that I have gotten in order to deliver, from my certain set of
Yeah.
skills,
Sure.
because it is so important, and it's not always easy to have to hold space for people like that. Like, you have to have a great capacity to be able to deliver those things in such a delicate and respectful manner.
Yeah, on TikTok in particular, where a lot of times folks you don't even get to see them. You just see their screen name and yeses and nos or whatever they say. But when you're in person, or when we do Zoom readings like this, we can see where they're, physically see where they're at too.
Mhm.
So there's a big difference there. But we just,
Absolutely.
a lot of times you'll hear mediums or even people reading cards going, I'm just getting a sense this is not something that we should be discussing here, and let's connect offline, um, because there's a depth or a seriousness to it that now is the time for it, but not
Mhm.
on TikTok or not on
Right.
Instagram. But
Right,
so
not in front of
oftentimes,
all these people, yeah.
yeah, oftentimes you'll see people do that. I've done that had to do that a few times, not too many,
Mhm.
but there have been times, or you just constantly just, you set your intention that spirit, what I want to do here is something we can do here. Let's not do harm. I want to do good. What do they need to know now? And I'm careful to deliver things in a language.
Mhm.
And if there is something that's a little pointed, I come back and go, but this is in love. And, and share a little bit more about where we know spirit's coming from, whether or not we're connecting with their loved one or not. Spirit's always in love. And so if we can help them to understand that this is being shared is something, we want you to spend some time thinking about and stop worrying about, or whatever it might be. I
Mhm.
don't mean to put put the um, put the medication out there of what the solution is, but
Yeah.
and that's another thing, to stay away from the legal, stay away from the medical. You talk about we can't be held liable. Some countries you can't. In
Yeah.
England, you're licensed to do this or not, and you can be sued. And there have been lawsuits around mediumship and card reading. So
Mhm.
you do need to be careful.
Absolutely.
There are folks that are, we know that there's all the people that are out there that come in and they try to do false readings and charge people. Gosh, those people are just going after the money side of things, but gosh, the damage that they do. And
Yeah.
I haven't had the level of it, but several of my mentors and other people that do a lot of readings on TikTok, you hear about the damage control that they have to do because somebody impersonating them came along, or somebody came along and did a terrible reading and just beat them
Mhm.
up, and
Yeah.
um, and then said thanks for your money and left. And they weren't
Right.
either they weren't truly developed, or they were truly fake and just charging money. But
Right.
anyway, folks need to be careful. And we talk a lot, you hear a lot about that through the community on TikTok and Instagram and others. So that's very good. But we need to
Right.
keep echoing that because they're, and even at that, find somebody that you really feel comfortable with, not that you just see on TikTok and, oh, they got a lot of followers, and watch them, listen to them.
Right.
If you want, call them or email them and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you before I would set anything up. Get to know your medium, get to know your card reader
Right.
beforehand, and know that your energy really feels like it connects with them, not just because somebody else did that reading with them or they've got 150,000 followers.
Exactly. Because having a lot of followers doesn't equate to having integrity, right?
No, no, absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
in fact, it's kind of funny because long as I've been doing this on TikTok, one would argue, like, why do you only have 10,000 followers? Like, I've been on
Mhm.
TikTok for 4 or 5 years. Why do I only? But that's okay with me. The people that are in my community are in my community, and I love it.
Yes.
And starting to see small growth along the way of people kind of coming in when they need it, and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing behind it, is who needs to hear this now.
1000%. And I think it's more important to have loyal followers and fans and friends, rather than have
The,
a
yeah,
bajillion, fair weather ones. So I'm
the
fine
ones
with
that are
my small
always,
following too. Yeah.
am I going to get divorced? Oh, really?
What?
That's what you
Yeah.
want
We're all
to.
look
Well,
for to
Bob and I get
everybody.
back together.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So so let's talk a little bit about, like, we've been talking about how you do readings and stuff like that. Like, how do the messages come through for you, like, typically? Um and talking about, like, how they come through, I'm sure you're familiar with the clairs, like clairaudience, clairvoyance,
Sure.
everything like that. Like, how does it primarily come through for you?
Yeah, visual is my thing. I've been clairvoyant, as I was kind of saying, being an architect and artistically driven. I'm very visual, and I'm a very experiential person too, even in learning. I need to do that tactile doing it type thing.
Mhm.
So for me, my first mediumship, the ones that I was reminiscing last night while I was live, my first one ping of mediumship while I was reading cards came through, and it was absolutely 120% visual. It was this loved one describing a painting that they had done, that the family had found after the person had passed.
Oh,
Didn't know
wow.
anything about it. So visual is absolutely where I've been. Clairsentience, for sure, and it's one that I'm really working on. Claircognizance. I love claircognizance, but you've got to be really, claircognizance is one where you just know. This is
Yeah.
what I need to say.
You just be knowing.
Um, Yep. I love that one, and those are the ones that for me are like they're like the intuitive thing that we might get of turn left here instead of right. Like you just know you need to do it. That's for me very cognizant. Um, I don't hear, nor I don't physically hear. I definitely have had I hear a name, or I hear a word I need to say. I've had
Mhm.
that, but I am absolutely much more. And I want to say, because spirit is energy, spirit is love. Clairsentience, getting into the loved one, getting into the feeling of them. mm,
Mhm.
when you can describe the relationship between your sitter and their loved one because you
Mhm.
feel them, that's magic. And that's, as
Yes.
others will say, one of my mentors says, it's not Googleable or whatever. You can't find it on Google, right? It's not
Right,
oh,
right.
I found grandma, and grandma was born on oh, and look, there's pictures from the picnic last year. It's like, this was your relationship. this is how they loved you, or didn't, or whatever it might be. But when you can connect and spirits bringing through that clair sentient side of things, it's magic. I love the visual. The visual is just, oh my gosh, they're showing me that they've got puffy cheeks, and they're, oh yes, those are also things that, well, they'll connect with, and they'll connect with it in a way that, yes, you can look up a picture on Google and see a picture of this person, but it may be the thing that this person knows the sitter, their loved one, is going to recognize about them. So there's a lot of things about clairvoyance, or that visual connection, that is just magical too.
Mhm.
Yes, I've had the taste. Yes, I've had the smell, but most of those happen for me not in readings. Mostly for me personally. Just I
Mm.
happen to smell something that makes me remind of me of somebody. You don't have it too often in readings, but
Mhm.
I would say that the three for me are the sentience, voyance, and cognizant.
Mm. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I actually just thought of a question that wasn't on our roster today, but
Sure.
I'm just curious to know. So, I'm sure you have a family, and I know you have a lot of friends, but I'm sure you have a family. When you started to develop these things, like, what was their reaction to what you were doing?
Well, that's a loaded one. Um, we we I think so many of us deal with this.
Mhm.
Um, for me, being an architect, a professional, I have clients, I have bosses, I have partners in the business.
Mhm.
I have people that look as me, the boss. And can you imagine feeling comfortable telling them, "Oh, I'm also a medium, and I talk to dead people, or I read tarot cards," or I avoided that like the plague for the longest time. And why I think also my TikToks were all the card, just the camera pointing down at the cards for a long time too. Is like, I can't let other people know I'm doing this. So there's a kind of an out of a closet analogy here that
Yeah.
happens too, truly. And for my family, they knew I enjoyed it, and it was a hobby. I was kind of doing it on the side. Yes, I was
Mhm.
buying 70, 80 different decks, but
Right.
um, but for me, it was like, well, it's a hobby. He enjoys doing it. Okay. But there was a point where I started to get so much more invested in it. I was spending too much time on it. I was every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, jumping into 2 hour long TikToks and doing readings, that the
Mhm.
family side started to go, hey, remember us?
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel this. Like,
Mm.
why aren't you spending more time with us? And
Right.
you remember me, and I'm important too. And it was a knock and a wake up call for me, and that happened about 4 years ago. Yeah, 3.5 to 4 years ago. And
Mhm.
so I definitely made a cognizant move to be less on TikTok.
Mhm.
But then there was a moment where I also started to develop the cards, and they physically started to sell, which was a great business side of things. And it brought some revenue in that made
Mhm.
some folks in my family start to go, oh, you're not just reading for strangers. You're actually doing something that's actually making some money. And so I get that side of things. So there's a definite what they understand and what I do. And so now it's more of an appreciation, but there still is a very delicate balance of how much time I dedicate to this. And this is something I'm still dealing with, in a positive way. I'm not saying this is a negative. Like, this is my life journey, is like, I've got people I love in my life. And at times I can feel like I'm ignoring them because I've shifted to over here to doing card readings, or I'm going to, as my wife put it the other day, you go down and hide in the basement, which is where I am here. And I don't know what you're doing down there. um, but
Oh, we
it's
just keep robbing the basement, I mean, we'll
right.
we'll put
Yeah.
a plate of food by the door, like you're the weird uncle that nobody talks about.
But then there's an appreciation of what I do too by people that have found out about it. And I will tell
Mhm.
you, in all honesty, the person I was most fearful of finding out about it was somebody who's the president of the company that I work for. Um,
Wow.
and I'm on the board of the company too. I'm a partner in the company, but I still was like, don't want to allow this person to know this side of me. And we were at a board retreat and we had a few adult beverages, and he and I are just talking, and he started to share a little bit about something that was happening for him personally, and I just blurted out something, and he looked at me and goes, "How'd you know that?" And it was something
Because
to
I
do
just
with
be
something
knowing.
well, it was something to do with somebody in his family that was experiencing
Mhm.
something in the house. And I said, well, this is what
Okay.
they're doing. I think I said something like, well, this is what they're doing. He's like, how'd you know that that's what they're doing? I'm like, it kind of dawned on me in that
And it dawned on
adult
you.
beverage moment that, oh my God, what did I just do?
Wow.
But what ended up coming out of it was how appreciative he was of that ability that I've
Yeah.
developed. And I literally had tears because it was that much stress on me, that weight off my shoulders of I can truly be who I am.
Mm.
And while I'm still sensitive to who I share this with, the people that I was most concerned about and a little bit more open with this now, I feel a little bit more able to be my higher true self that I was kind of hiding before. And that's a very enlightening, weight lifted feeling when it happens. You can now talk a little bit more freely about who you really are. And there's so
Yeah.
many comparisons in our world of where that can be true. But I had my own little version of that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that too, because I think a lot of us can relate to that as well. We don't have the level of acceptance that would require us to fully feel, comfortable, and like you said, like being in that authenticity, and we have to kind of, be careful how we navigate it, who we tell these things to. So that's really awesome. I'm glad that you had such a positive experience with that.
Thanks. I mean, the other piece I would throw out to people too is there are people there's a point in your life and getting older, like I am, um, you start to have that F them attitude. It's you don't have that when you're 13. You don't have it when you're 20.
Right.
If you have it when you're 30, good for you, but it's unlikely. When you're in your 40s, you start to have it, but you're not really identifying with it. When I got into my 50s, it was like, you know what? This guy is other guy is taking my energy. He's really just doing this to bother me. And I got to the place where I was able to just say, I don't care. Like you're trying to put your energy in the way you lead your life on me. I don't that's not me. And
Right.
there's a freeing element that just happens in that too, but that's a harder one. You've got to really reflect on your life and be comfortable where you are to just be able to go, I don't care about your opinion anymore. Or I care about it, but I'm not going to have it affect me.
Right.
And it's there was a very big shift in my life when I suddenly let go of what other people care or
Mm.
what how they express what they care about and its impact on me. And that takes energy from us when they do that, right?
Right.
Or we're giving our energy away because we're suddenly focusing on it or we're allowing it to impact us, and
Right.
everything's energy. So that relationship between, and there was a physical not physical, there was a moment when I was having a conversation with one person in my life, actually that I worked with, that I finally kind of said, why are you acting like this? Like this, when you do this, I act this way because that's
Right.
just my response. And clearly, when I do that, you act this way, and that's your response. But I was finally, he realized that I just don't care anymore what his opinion was, and he disappeared. He's actively still in the business, but I have no connection with him anymore because he knows I just don't care anymore. I'm not going to deal with that BS. I'm not going to fold to the pressures that he used to put on me. And when you can, and I'm not suggesting that we all need to just go off and tell everybody to, fly away, but when you have that moment of realizing where your energy is and that you're giving up so much of your own energy and how it's impacting your life, how you enjoy what you do in life, whether it's job or it's hobby or whatever it may be, and you can realize that it's really impacting your life. It could be our loved ones too. I mean, it could be the people, and they can stay in our life and we can still love them. But when we can let them know, hey, this is how you make me feel when you do that. those aren't conversations you're comfortable having when you're 13, 20, 30, maybe 30. But when you can start to really let somebody know, you make me feel this way when you do that, and you can shift that energy, that's huge. Now we're totally off the
Yes.
topic of oracle cards and mediumship, but it's our experience, it's our journey here, and there's so much of that type of thing that I think spirit brings us and
Mhm.
shares. As he goes, you need to know this now. So,
Amen to that. Yeah, and it's so real. It's like, I think a lot of times, like, younger people fear getting older. It's like, no. It's like you said, it can be so freeing because you're like, I no longer have to carry the weight of others' projections. I can truly be and embody my own energy.
yeah. Well, I shared this with my live group yesterday on TikTok is
Mhm.
the people that are in our life are there to reflect back at us what we really are dealing with. And that doesn't go away. I mean, I literally had a moment this week where I had to reflect on that myself. I'm like, oh, this is something I need to, this is not just a relationship thing that's going on. I need to think about and know that I'm getting this reflected back at me because it's something I need to work on. It's something I need to think about. It's something that's impacting my life. No, it doesn't, it's not just a light switch. It goes, oh, I figure, oh, that's why. I mean, it's going to take a lot to really understand this more. What do I need to do with this? But it's, anyway, I wanted to share out that, people that are in our life are there to reflect back at us the very things that we're dealing with or we're working on or we need to work on. So if you find somebody in your life that's really getting upset with you or causing heated moments or even the loving moments, they're reflecting back on you what you're putting off or what you're dealing with or what you're thinking on. And so it's to know that somebody that is impacting me with something I'm upset about. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing that's actually causing this? And so that's the shadow work that we all talk about. It's like figuring out
Mhm.
ourselves and figuring out our energies and how they interact with everything. And when you can make those energies smooth, going with the flow of life is so much smoother. Now, we can say this out loud, but it's hard to do,
Right.
right?
It is. You have to play it carefully.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. I did want to ask you another off the roster question because
sure.
I noticed you have, it looks to be like a zodiac
Oh,
tapestry
right
in the
here. Uh-huh.
background. Do you have any other besides, the tarot, the oracle, are there any other modalities that you like to work with?
That's a great question. Not right now. I mean, I've got this back here because it was on Amazon and I was able to buy it and I needed something to hang behind me. But I will tell you, I am fascinated by astrology.
Mm,
And some of the folks that are on TikTok and Instagram and other platforms that do those readings, it's unbelievable the depth that they can get into and understanding and truth that comes out of the messages that they can tell us about our birth chart and aligning it
mhm,
with our birth chart with the chart for today and going, this is
mhm.
what things that you're experiencing now. It's like, holy mackerel. But for me right now, it's my tarot of yesterday. Like it's too much. I can't dig into that. But I know enough to be dangerous. I know a little bit of the characteristic cliche things of each sign and how they interact. So yeah, I'm very interested in it, but not something that I'm diving into truly outside of watching others on TikTok and just fascinated by it because it is
Yeah.
just really incredible the information that they can bring forward about us in our life right now just by reading our astrology. So no,
True.
nothing else I'm really focused on right now. I've got another card deck I'm working on, which is a long one. It's one that I'm actually literally carving linoleum, so it's taking a long time to do it. Yeah, there's a
Wow.
whole right there. There's a whole stack of linoleum right here, and then these are ones that are done, but that's about half of what needs to be done.
Wow.
So it's taking quite some time. But my other decks are all on sale on my website and my Etsy. I got off of TikTok just because of the uncertainty that there is with it. And
Yeah.
frankly, I was tired of bureaucracy that's behind TikTok and some of the sales. And, for a small shop, it's a lot to deal with. When you're probably just selling a bajillion things, it may be easier for folks, or it's the only thing you do. But it was a lot to handle. So I got off it. I'm not selling my stuff on TikTok anymore.
I got you. Yeah, and that's fair. And astrology can be a lot. You're right. Like it can be kind
Yeah.
of overwhelming, and
Is
you
that
got to
something you're into?
devote. Oh yeah, I love astrology. I'm like you. I know enough to be dangerous, but numerology is my bag.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's where I shine. But yeah, it can be a lot to delve into.
Yeah. Very cool.
Absolutely. Okay, so one more question before we close out. Well, actually, two. But
Okay.
um, what is one piece of advice that you would like to offer those who are going through a spiritual journey or spiritual awakening at this time?
Okay, great question. I'm glad you posed it. One is stop comparing yourself to others. It's
Mhm.
great as inspiration. It's great to be able to look at somebody else and go, oh, how neat. I really want to do that. I see joy in my being able to do that. But know that all of our journeys are going to be different.
Mhm.
Um, Find yourself a community of like individuals that are looking at something similar. It's Yes, there are folks that have developed their own abilities and on their own and are doing it. But if you're starting your own journey and you're looking for something that really can be something giving you affirmation, gives you some guidance of things you could try, find yourself a development community of folks that are doing the same thing. I think that's very helpful. It helped me a great deal having a mentor, and be open to anything to come along. For me, I wasn't looking for a mentor, but boy, there was one, and then there was another one when I needed that one, and I've got one now that's helping me on my mediumship and is a friend too. Um, so I would say that those are really important, just to know that you should not feel like you have to follow somebody else's path, but find a community that's going to be supportive of you trying things and get the development circles, which are these places where people practice together and learn together, are fantastic because you can try new things. This is a group of people that know that we're all learning and we can be wrong and we can not get it right, but we can try something that we're feeling is working for us and see how it goes before we get out and do a reading for somebody else someplace. And the last piece of that too, and I shared this already, and I share this all the time in all my readings, is to follow your joy, because when you're following what makes you happy, you're truly on your path. You're truly on this path of what lights you up. Your higher self is telling you that that's your path because your feeling of joy and enjoyment from that is there. Where else would that come from? The fact that you love to do something. It's the things that you don't like to do. Well, stop doing them. Now, some of them we have to do, and I tell this in some of the other platforms or in even some interviews I've had, is the things that we have to do, you could put them off, but when they need to be dealt with, they'll be there. And
Right.
that's the energy of now. I mean, that is like, yes, we've got a bill that comes due, and if we don't pay it, okay, you didn't pay it. Or you got work you need to do, you didn't do it. And there'll be consequences to some of these things. But when there's something you really need to do, pay that delinquent bill, it's going to present itself. Like it's going to bring it to its now.
Mhm.
So we spend a lot of time thinking about what we have to do or the impacts of our past. The more we can try to live in our now, with yes, we're in a timeline. So yes, we do have bills and we do have things we need to do, but following your joy and then allow the things that you have to do to present themselves when they have to be dealt with, which can be, oh, 30 days from now, my bill is due. I better pay it now.
Mhm.
You'll just, that energy will be around you and things will just start to pop in when they need to be. It's when we clog up our system, um, and we all do it. Nobody's healed. There's no such thing as a healed person.
Right.
We all are broken. Um, but these are the things that are in our path right now. These are the things that we're working on dealing with. And I've got my own that I'm working on too. And um, what's remarkable is those things that you need to learn, you need to deal with will present themselves when you really need them. So in the interim, follow your joy. Do the things
Mhm.
that light you up.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. Rob, this has been such a wonderful talk, and thank you so
This
much for
has been.
taking the
Thank you.
time to be here with me today.
Thank you, Beck. This has been fantastic. And again, thank you for our friendship over the last 4 or 5 years or so. Even just our connecting on TikTok. It's been fantastic. And congratulations on your own journey too. It's really great to see.
Thank you. And tell us how people can find you and
Sure.
connect with you.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's intuitiveintention.com, all spelled out one word. If you want to email me, just put Rob at in front of that. So Rob at intuitiveintention.com. My decks are there. Information about my workshops are there. I am selling my decks on Etsy. So My Intuitive Intention is my shop name, My Intuitive Intention. So stuff is there. And my workshop that's coming up in October, I'm doing with Dana Willey, who is with Mediumship with Heart. And so if you were to go to her website, mediumshipwithheart.com, and go to the book now or book here, all the way down at the bottom will be my workshop that's coming up. It's a 4 Sunday workshop to do and talk about all the things we talked about today, and really help you advance and connect with your own psychic energies, your own language with spirit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rob. And
Thank you, Beck.
everybody, please check Rob out and check out his amazing work. He's really doing a solid for the spiritual community. And everybody take care. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.